Tomorrow at 9, I'm driving you to Maple Ridge Care. You'll live there from now on. Marcus didn't joke when a decision fattened his pockets or eased his conscience. He kept his mouth in a straight line and let the paperwork do the smiling. You'll have your own room, he said, flicking through his phone like a dealer with a marked deck. There's a garden. Activities. Nurses on call. It's for the best. For the best, I repeated, as if the words were a walnut I could crack and eat. You learn this with age, kid. For the best is the ribbon people tie on boxes they don't mind shipping you out in. I set the spoon down and laced my fingers so he wouldn't see they weren't shaking. And when did we decide this? He met my eyes finally. Same color as his mother's, but running colder water. After the stove incident. After the fall on the back steps. After Lena found the mail piling up in the mudroom. I warmed a skillet, not the house, I said. I slipped because you never fixed that loose tread like I asked. And the mail? That's a system. I read it on Tuesdays with the outdoor light on. You know this. Dad, he said, voice going soft the way people talk to horses before they lead them into trailers. Pack a small bag. 3 days' worth. I already handled the waiting list. Handled. Another ribbon word. We drove with the windows cracked because June smells better than arguments. White cedar slid by in green sweeps, ballfield, feed store, the old movie house with its dead bulbs spelling REARS open FRI. The same main street I'd walked with Marcus when his legs were the size of my wrists. He kept the radio off. I figured music might pour honesty into the room and he wasn't in the market. They have woodworking classes, he offered, like a hotel brochure. You like woodworking? I like my workshop, I said. I like my bench chisels right where my hand expects them and the radio guy who still clears his throat before the farm report. That's what I like. He pressed his lips together and turned onto the fresh asphalt that led to the brick building with the friendly font, Maple Ridge Care. New shrubs, doomed to the first hard frost. A flag that snapped like a reprimand. A woman with cinnamon hair held the door with the crisp cheer you learn in hard jobs. Mr. Pike? Marcus? Hi, I'm Abby. Welcome. Welcome is a word that can bruise, depending where you hear it. Inside smelled like lemon cleaner and an uncommitted soup. An aquarium hummed beside a TV whispering about a senator from a state I've never cared to visit. An old boy in a Buckeyes sweatshirt slept with his mouth open, the universal posture of surrender. Today's just paperwork and a tour, Abby said, dimpling like she meant it. You don't have to decide anything heavy right this second. She slid a clipboard across polished wood. Insurance, emergency contacts, medical notes. Standard stuff. Marcus answered everything before I could inhale, dates, doses, doctors, with the committed accuracy of a man who had practiced caring for a parent in front of a mirror. He signed and initialed with a flourish. Then a page arrived with a first line that read like a trick step, I, Eldon Pike, consent to voluntary admission. Voluntary, I said, tasting the shape. That a lawyer's joke? It's how you stay in control, Marcus said quickly. In control of giving up control, I answered, and smiled so the sentence would pass as weather. I signed anyway. Listen, grandson, sometimes you don't win the opening. Sometimes you nod, and you count. Counting buys you thinking time. 1, 2, 3. While my pen moved, my mind mapped exits, people, phrases that mattered, like a carpenter locating studs behind drywall by tapping. Abby toured us through sunrooms and hallways hung with paintings of barns that never had their roofs torn by wind. We paused at a door labeled Juniper 12. We can set you up here tomorrow, she said. You'd share with Arnold. Nice gentleman. Watches the Tigers. Never touches the remote. I like a man with firm convictions, I said. The varnished doorframe was too smooth. New wood lies easily, it hasn't had a life beat into it yet. Back in the office, Abby stuck a yellow note on a folder, Eldon Pike, arrival, June 12, and slid it into a tray like a train ticket. Any questions for me? She asked. Section 7, I said. Guardianship triggers, what flips that switch? Marcus looked up so fast you could have hung a bell on his neck. Abby blinked, then recovered. Oh, only if someone becomes a danger to themselves or others, or a court orders it. We'd contact your representative first. My representative, I said mildly, tapping the stack of forms, being my son. Right, she said. But those are worst-case scenarios. Worst-case scenarios are how I made it through a factory collapse in '81 and a blizzard in '94. I catalogued the information the way a hunter catalogues wind. We walked back through the lemon soup lobby. A new family came in, daughter pushing, elder resisting, the same dance, different shoes. Outside, the Maple Ridge flag lifted and dropped like a tired chest. Marcus opened the car door for me, all sonly politeness. You did good, Dad. I'm proud of you. For what? Accepting my own eviction. I swallowed the pennies that phrase puts in my mouth. Proud is what a coach says when the benchwarmer runs sprints without complaint. Halfway home, he cleared his throat. I'll come at 9. Lena's packing your toiletries. Oh, and I'll take the house keys tonight. Just to grab a few things early. Make it easier on you. There it was, the real sentence hiding inside the brochure. You don't ask a man for his keys, just to. You ask because you want the locks to answer to you. Sure, I said, and worked the split ring off my belt loop. Shed keys brass. You always forget the shed. He pocketed my life smooth as a magician. We finished the drive on quiet tires. My peonies had finally decided to open, tight fists loosening into pink. Nadine planted them the spring after Marcus was born. She used to say peonies wait for the right day like stubborn people do. Inside, I closed the door and leaned my back against it until the seam stopped pushing. Then I went to my desk. Bottom right drawer. Manila envelope. 2 documents slept there like loaded traps, a notarized letter Nadine and I signed the year her chemo started, and a deed addendum I'd filed last winter when the furnace died and I learned how honest cold can be. I laid both under the lamp, their edges square and patient. People think revenge is shouting. It's actually paper. The phone sat heavy as a promise. I dialed a number that lives in my hand, County Clerk's office, May speaking. May, I said, this is Eldon. You still keep the conditional life estate records handy? A pause. May's been stamping my permits since before Marcus could spell his name in ketchup. I do, she said carefully. Eldon, what's going on? Nothing yet, I told her, watching the driveway through the sheer curtain, where Marcus would appear any minute to collect the keys I forgot. But I'll need a certified copy of the deed from December. And the transfer memo from March. The one with the clause. The clause, she repeated, voice lowering. You actually filed that? I did, I said. Now I'm going to use it. Tires crunched outside. I saw his silhouette on the porch glass, taller than the boy who used to sleep with his palms open, heavier with certainty. I slid the documents into the envelope and tucked it under the phone. My hand found the spare keys he didn't know existed, the ones in the sugar canister, taped beneath the metal lid the way Nadine taught me when she still liked to outfox the world. Knuckles rapped twice. Dad? You forgot the back door key. I looked at the door, at the envelope, at the peonies bowing heavy with bloom, and I smiled a quiet, unfriendly smile he wouldn't recognize through the wood. Come on in, son, I called, unlocking the chain. I've got something for you to sign. Marcus stepped inside with the easy confidence of a man who believed the house already belonged to him. He brushed his shoes on the mat, not out of respect but out of habit, and scanned the kitchen like a realtor rehearsing a pitch. "Morning, Dad," he said, lifting the ring of keys I'd given him the night before. "Just missing the back door. Can't leave the place unsecured, right?" I nodded and slid the missing brass key across the table, the one I'd chosen specifically to keep in my pocket last night. He slipped it onto the ring without hesitation, already imagining what doors it would open for him. He didn't know about the real keys, the sugar canister, the shed beam, the loose brick under the porch where Nadine and I once hid a spare for emergencies. He thought he owned the locks. He owned the metal, nothing more. He moved quickly, businesslike, opening cupboards, peering into the fridge. "We'll just grab the essentials," he said. "You won't need all this where you're going." His tone had shifted from son to executor, and it made my stomach twist. I watched him move about the kitchen, already claiming the space with every casual inspection. He didn't notice the way my fingers tapped the envelope beneath the phone. He didn't notice my eyes tracking every step. "Marcus," I said evenly, "when's the last time you asked me what I wanted?" He paused, hand hovering over a stack of Nadine's old pie tins. His face softened briefly, but the steel returned. "Dad, I'm doing this for you. For your safety. For your health." "No," I said, leaning back in the chair. "You're doing this for your comfort. So Lena won't have to worry. So you won't get calls during dinner. You're not protecting me, you're protecting your calendar." The words landed like a dull hammer. He tightened his jaw and turned back to the cupboard. That was answer enough. By noon, a box sat by the door, shirts, shaving kit, the old transistor radio I loved. He'd left the workshop untouched, probably thinking it was junk. That was his mistake. My workshop wasn't just wood and nails, it was a vault of secrets, of tools I'd used to build and to hide. "Ready?" he asked, wiping his hands as though he'd performed some noble service. I stood slowly, letting my back complain so he'd underestimate me. "Just a moment," I said, lifting the envelope and slipping it into my jacket. "Need to bring some papers." He didn't ask. He never did. Marcus lived in a world where details sorted themselves out because he assumed someone else had already handled them. That's how people like him missed the knife on the table. The drive back to Maple Ridge was quieter than yesterday. He didn't fill the silence with small talk this time. Maybe he thought the decision was done, the chapter closed. I stared out the window, watching fields give way to suburbs to polished lawns that all looked the same. "You'll see, Dad," he said at last. "It'll be good for you. Structure. People your age. You'll thank me one day." "Maybe," I murmured. "And maybe one day, you'll realize what you've done." He frowned, but the traffic light turned green and he didn't press it. He thought I meant resentment. He had no idea I was speaking of something else entirely. At Maple Ridge, Abby greeted us again, her cinnamon hair catching the sunlight. "Mr. Pike. Good to see you back. Ready to get settled?" Marcus answered before I could. "Yes. Juniper 12, right?" "Correct," she said, flipping through her folder. "We just need to finalize a couple of forms." She led us toward the office. Inside, the lemon cleaner smell was stronger, almost sharp. I took the seat by the desk, placed my envelope on the table, and slid out the two documents like playing cards. Abby blinked. Marcus frowned. "What's that?" he asked. "Just a little insurance," I said. "Abby, would you mind making certified copies for your file? You'll find them relevant." She scanned the first page, her brows knitting. "This is a deed transfer?" Marcus leaned over, eyes narrowing. "Dad, what is this?" I watched his face while I answered. "Last December, I filed a conditional life estate on the house. Means I live there until I die, no eviction, no forced sale, no signatures except mine. After my death, it passes directly as outlined. He snatched the page. Outlined to who? To your sister, I said quietly. Because she never tried to throw me away. The color drained from his cheeks, and for the first time in months, he looked less like a man and more like the boy who once got caught cheating on a math quiz. Abby cleared her throat gently. Mr. Pike, this does change things. We don't usually. Don't worry, I said, folding my hands. I'm not refusing the room. I'm just making sure everyone understands, this is voluntary. And my property remains mine until my last breath. Marcus's lips parted, but no sound came out. He set the paper down like it was burning him. Dad, he began. No, I cut him off. You made your choice. You wanted me in here? Fine. I'll play along. But you don't get the house. Not now, not later. And you'll know, every time you pass that porch, that it slipped through your fingers the second you tried to take it from me. Abby excused herself to make copies, sensing the storm. The door clicked behind her, and the silence pressed down. Marcus sat heavily, rubbing his temples. Why would you do this to me? To you? I almost laughed. You did this to yourself. You forgot the first rule I ever taught you, don't underestimate the old man who built the ground you're standing on. When Abby returned, she placed the stamped copies neatly in front of me. All set, Mr. Pike. Your rights are protected. She hesitated. Would you still like to see your room? Yes, I said, standing with deliberate calm. Let's see it. Marcus followed, his steps heavier now. He looked smaller somehow, though he tried to mask it. That's the thing about revenge, child, it doesn't need shouting or blood. Sometimes it's just a signature on the right line, years before anyone thinks to look. But I wasn't finished. Not by half. Because while Marcus believed he'd lost the house, he hadn't yet realized what else I'd taken from him in that quiet December filing, the power to decide where I lived, how I lived, and what became of me when my time came. And soon, very soon, I'd show him just how much he'd gambled and lost. Juniper 12 looked like a motel room somebody had tried too hard to make homey. 2 twin beds. Matching floral spreads. A dresser with drawers that smelled of disinfectant. A crucifix over the door, though I doubted Arnold the Tiger fan had asked for it. He wasn't there, off at bingo or therapy, I guessed. His absence left a silence that echoed louder than any welcome. Marcus stood in the doorway, arms crossed, pretending to assess the room. Really, he was watching me. Waiting for me to collapse, or rage, or beg him to take me back home. That was his fantasy, the old man beaten, humbled, grateful for help. Instead, I set my bag on the dresser, unzipped it, and took out the transistor radio. I set it on the windowsill, tuned it until the static turned into a crackly farm report. The voice of a man who still cared about corn prices filled the sterile air. Now it feels more like my room, I said, sitting down on the bed. The springs groaned in protest. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. Dad, I know you're angry, but this is for the best, I finished, waving him off. You said it already. You can go now. I'll be just fine. He hesitated, jaw working. Then, softer, you didn't have to cut me out. I didn't cut you out. You took yourself out. The day you chose convenience over blood, you signed your own exclusion. His face hardened. You think this is over? That piece of paper won't protect you forever. Maybe not, I said, leaning back on the bed, folding my hands behind my head. But it protects me today. And today is all a man needs to start his work. He frowned, not understanding. That was fine. Understanding would come later, when it hurt most. The days at Maple Ridge passed in a strange rhythm. Mornings of eggs that tasted the same no matter how they were cooked. Afternoons of puzzles missing pieces, card games no one finished. Evenings where the halls smelled faintly of bleach and loneliness. Arnold turned out to be decent company. He'd been a machinist, hands like tree bark, mind sharp when he talked baseball stats. He didn't ask questions about me, which I appreciated. He knew the rule of men our age: some stories you keep under the ribcage until the grave. But Marcus, he couldn't leave it alone. He visited twice the first week, always with the same routine: cheerful smile for the staff, worried frown for me. He spoke to Abby in low tones, asked about my adjustment, about early intervention if I resisted care. I caught him slipping a pamphlet about guardianship into his jacket when he thought I wasn't looking. He was planning a second strike. The house had slipped from his hands, but he wanted everything else: my accounts, my authority, my decisions. He thought paperwork could finish what betrayal had begun. One evening, after he left, Arnold glanced at me over his crossword. "That boy of yours," he said, "he's circling something. Not sure if it's prey or trouble." "Same thing," I muttered. Arnold chuckled, but I wasn't joking. By the second week, I had mapped the place. Every hallway, every locked cabinet, every schedule of the staff. I knew when the night nurse stepped outside for her cigarette, when the meds cart rolled past Juniper Wing, when the security cameras blinked their blind spots. An old man with time learns to notice patterns. That's how you survive winters and wars alike. I also knew Abby was decent. She had that habit of speaking to us like equals, not burdens. So when I asked her about the staff Wi-Fi password one afternoon, she gave it freely, thinking I wanted to video call family. I thanked her, pocketed the slip of paper, and later that night, while Arnold snored, I opened the library computer and logged into my bank. I'd been watching Marcus make his moves for months: little transfers he thought I wouldn't see, investments he justified as temporary, accounts he conveniently forgot to mention. I'd let it slide because blood is thicker than numbers. But blood gets thinner when it mixes with greed. Now I began moving what was left. Small amounts first, to test the waters. Then larger, redirected into a trust under my granddaughter's name, Marcus's own daughter, the one he barely visited. She'd find out in time. For now, it was just my secret, folded away with the other documents. The next time Marcus came, I was ready. He entered with that same forced brightness, Lena hovering behind him like a shadow. They brought fruit, flowers, little tokens to make the staff nod approvingly. "Dad," Marcus said, setting the basket on the dresser. "I've been thinking. Maybe we should formalize some things, just to make sure you're taken care of. Power of attorney, joint access to accounts, that sort of thing. No pressure." I smiled, slow and thin. "That's thoughtful, son. Why don't you bring the papers next time? I'll sign whatever you like." His eyes lit up. Lena looked relieved. They thought I'd softened. But I wasn't giving in, I was baiting a trap. Because here's the thing: when a man betrays you, you don't just push back once. You let him think he's winning, over and over, until he's knee-deep in his own lies. Then you close the jaws and let him hear the teeth click shut. Arnold waited until they left before speaking. "That smile you gave him. Haven't seen a smile like that since I watched a cat toy with a mouse." "Then you know," I said. He nodded slowly. "Just make sure you don't enjoy it so much you forget the cost." I looked at the envelope still tucked under my mattress, at the screen where my accounts now glowed with new security. "Don't worry," I said. "I never forget the cost. I just make sure someone else pays it." That night, as I lay in the dark listening to Arnold's steady breathing, I pictured Marcus's face when he realized the bank accounts were empty, the deed was untouchable, and the only signature he'd ever get from me would be on papers that sealed his own downfall. The revenge wasn't finished. Not even close. Because soon, he'd learn that Maple Ridge was not a cage for me, it was a stage. And every man who tries to discard his father should be careful. Some of us learn to use walls not as prisons, but as mirrors, reflecting every betrayal right back where it belongs. 2 weeks in, Maple Ridge felt less like exile and more like a waiting room. I knew every creak in the hallway floorboards, every staff rotation, every place where Marcus liked to whisper with Abby about next steps. He thought charm would bend her. He didn't understand that people who spend their days with the forgotten grow immune to smooth talk. They see truth in small things, like who holds a door, who remembers names, who listens. Still, Marcus didn't quit. He came with a manila folder one Tuesday morning, Lena trailing behind with her fake smile polished bright. He laid the papers out on my bed like an altar. "Dad, this is just formality," he said. "Power of attorney. It lets me handle the details. Nothing changes day to day, you'll still make your own choices." Arnold, bless him, sat in the corner pretending to fuss with a crossword. But I saw his ears tilt forward like a hunting dog's. I leaned back against the headboard. "You've been patient, Marcus. I respect that. Let's see the papers." He slid the top sheet toward me, tapping where the signature should go. "Just here, Dad." Simple. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled, but not from weakness. From anticipation. "Before I sign," I said, "let's have Abby witness. She ought to be in the room for something like this." Marcus froze. Lena's eyes darted. But I pressed the call button, and within a minute Abby walked in, cinnamon hair pulled back, clipboard under her arm. "Everything okay?" "Just some paperwork," I said calmly. "My son wants me to sign over power of attorney. Would you mind observing?" Her eyes flicked from me to Marcus, then back. She nodded slowly. "Of course." I set the pen down and opened my own envelope. The room seemed to shrink as I unfolded the documents. Certified deed copy. Trust account summary. And Nadine's letter, yellowed but sharp in ink. "Before I sign anything new," I said, "I want my son to read what I've already signed." I handed the deed to Abby first. "Life estate. Irrevocable. House passes to my daughter. Marcus has no claim." Then the trust summary. "All liquid accounts transferred to a minor's trust. Beneficiary, my granddaughter. Untouchable until she's 25. Finally, Nadine's letter." I didn't hand that one over, I read it myself. Her handwriting, careful even when the chemo shook her. "If Marcus ever turns against you, protect yourself. Protect what we built. Protect the girl. Don't let his ambition bury you." Silence filled the room. Arnold coughed once, but otherwise it was still as a church. Marcus's face went blotchy red. "You tricked me," he hissed. "No," I said. "I prepared for you. There's a difference. You can't do this. I'm your son." I leaned forward, my voice low but steady. "And you tried to throw me away. Blood makes you my son. Actions make you my enemy." Abby shifted, uncomfortable, but she didn't interrupt. She'd seen too many versions of this to be shocked. Marcus shoved the papers back toward me. "Sign mine. Right now." I laughed. "Not cruel, just final." "I'll sign something, all right." I pulled out one last sheet from my envelope, a letter I'd written the night before. It was addressed to the county court, notarized by Abby herself. A formal notice rejecting any transfer of rights without my explicit presence and signature. I slid it across the table. "That's the only thing I'm signing today. Filed already. Effective immediately." For a moment, Marcus looked like a man who'd forgotten how to breathe. Lena touched his arm, but he shook her off. His lips worked, but no sound came out. Then he turned, grabbed the useless folder, and stormed out, Lena hurrying behind. The door slammed so hard the crucifix rattled on the wall. Arnold whistled low. Never saw a man gutted by paper cuts before. Paper's sharper than steel when you use it right, I said, sliding the envelope back under my mattress. Abby lingered, her eyes soft with something between pity and respect. Mr. Pike, you were ready for this a long time, weren't you? Yes, I said simply. Because betrayal isn't a lightning strike. It's a storm you smell hours before it hits. That night, I sat by the window with my radio humming low. The garden lights outside cast pale circles on the lawn, and I thought about Marcus as a boy, his palms open in sleep, his small hand clutching mine when the world scared him. I didn't hate him. Hate is heavy, and I'm too old to carry extra weight. But I'd made sure he learned a lesson written in law and blood alike: when you discard a father, don't expect him to go quietly. Some of us sharpen our silence until it cuts. And when the day comes that Marcus drives past the house he wanted so badly, the house that isn't his, he'll feel the sting every time. He'll know the lock's answer to me, even from the grave. That is revenge, child. Not shouting, not fists. Just the knowledge that the man you tried to bury stood up, dusted himself off, and left you holding nothing but regret. And with that thought, I tuned the radio to the farm report and let the night carry me forward, lighter than I'd felt in years.